Hello everybody, how are you doing? So I am doing a video today about, it's a story about what happens when we sin. So if you've been listening to my channel for a while, you kind of understand, like when we walk in according to the commandments of Adonai, when we walk according to his statutes, it produces blessings in our lives. But when we walk contrary to that, it causes confusion and we lose our blessings, okay? So I'm going to read to you. I'm in 1 Kings 11, okay? So let's see. Okay, so what is going on? But King Solomon loved many foreign women, as well as the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians, and Hittites, from the nations of whom the Adonai had said to the children of Israel, "You shall not intermarry with them, nor they with you, for surely they will turn away your hearts after their gods." Okay? Sometimes we hear a word of warning and we don't listen. Sometimes it's because we think we're above whatever we heard. Sometimes we're right. Sometimes we do hear something from other people and it's hearsay and it is not really of value, but sometimes it's important, okay? So I said the reason why, so when Adonai gives us rules, there's reasons why. He gives us rules to protect us, okay? So he says, don't intermarry with them, for they will surely turn your heart away after other gods, okay? Solomon clung to these in love, and he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. Now, if they're like 365 days of the year, he had more than enough women for like each day. I mean, he had so many women. Like, so it's not, okay, so if you look, sometimes the iniquity of the fathers rests on the children. So if you go back a couple pages previously, you will notice that his father, I don't know if I have to go back to that story, his father, David, found Bathsheba on a rooftop taking a bath, and he fell in love with her, and then he killed her husband to have children with her, to take her as his wife, okay? That's what the father did, even though David's heart was pure toward Yahweh or Adonai. So Solomon's sin or his iniquities are in regard to women again, okay? So he had way too many women, because if you have one wife can turn away your heart from your creator or from your first love or whatever you're doing. But for him to have 700 wives, 300 concubines, so 700 combined, maybe wives. I don't know if they were all princesses or just some of them were princesses and some of them were wives, okay? But 300 concubines, that's way too many, okay? So if you had that many friends, it would probably turn you away if they weren't all righteous people. So, I mean, he was basically asking for trouble, okay? So it's not even that he heard information from people like, don't do this because it's going to cause this. It's not hearsay. It's like he was tipping the scales, like trying to test his strength to see, like, if I surround myself with so many people, I'm sure I won't fall. I don't know if that's what he was thinking. If he was thinking in that way, maybe there was a reason behind it, okay? Maybe in his mind he thought he was above trouble. I don't really know. Okay, so I'm getting too far into his head. Let me keep reading, okay? So anyway, and his wives turned away his heart, for it was so when Solomon was old that his wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not loyal to the Adonai his Arabah, as was the heart of his father David. Okay, so there was a goddess of the Sidonians. There was an abomination of the Ammonites. Okay, let me see. There was a high place for the abomination of Moab. Okay, and let me see. And there was an abomination of the people of Ammon. Okay, so there were like 4 different goddesses or abominations that were worshipped in Solomon's place that was not supposed to be so, okay? Now verse 8, and he did likewise for all his foreign wives who burned incense and sacrificed to their gods. So the Adonai became angry with Solomon because his heart had turned from the Adonai of Israel who had appeared to him twice. So can you imagine you have a creator who appears to you? Not only did you hear of his glory from your father who was so much of a loyal worshiper, he appeared to you 2 times, gave you your heart's desire the first time. Like, okay, so if Solomon wanted the creator to be real in his life, how much more real could the creator have been? I mean, he could have been in his life on a daily basis, but compared to everybody else, Solomon had a real experience with the creator. It's not just he had a prayer. It's not just he heard about his father's relationship. He had real visits from the creator in his life. He knew who he was. But yet when the creator says, okay, don't have too many wives because it will turn your heart away from me toward their gods, he didn't listen to that instruction, and that was very important for him since his father's sin was in regard to relationships also, okay? So kind of pay attention to where your parents' sins are and try to make sure you don't fall into those same sins or iniquities, okay? I did a video about deliver me from the iniquities of my own iniquities and my ancestral iniquities. So this message is kind of about ancestral iniquities also. Okay. So anyway, so in verse 9, the Adonai became angry with Solomon because his heart had turned from the Adonai, Erevat of Israel, who had appeared to him twice, and had commanded him concerning this thing that he should not go after other gods, but he did not keep what the Adonai had commanded. Therefore the Adonai said to Solomon, because you have done this. So I don't know if I should tell you, because this has to do with ancestral iniquities, okay? So if you want to know why your family got messed up at some point, you have to go all the way back in history and see where the iniquities fall. And then it will explain to you why things are messed up the way that they are in the present, okay? So I'm just going to be honest with what the word says here, okay? Therefore the Adonai said to Solomon, because you have done this and have not kept my covenant and my statutes, which I have commanded you, I will surely tear the kingdom away from you and give it to your servant. So there's a message in this here. It's kind of like, it's actually a sin kind of when an inheritance goes to the servant instead of the person it was supposed to go to. So it's kind of like an embarrassment here, because when you turn away from the creator and what he asks you to do, then he will turn away the blessing from you. So my question here is, what is it, I'm making it a little personal for you. What is it that you have done that has removed the blessings from out of your life and sent it elsewhere, okay? That's kind of a question we're going to ask ourselves as we listen to this message. Like, how can I return the blessings back to my household? How can I repent from my ancestral sin? Those are the different questions that should come to your mind, okay? So the Creator says, nevertheless, I will not do it in your days for the sake of your father David, but I will tear it out of the hand of your son. However, I will not tear away the whole kingdom, but I will give one tribe to your son for the sake of my servant David, for the sake of Jerusalem, which I have chosen. Okay? So all along the years, David has had Judah like following him. Judah, Zion, they've been on his side, okay? And so they've been probably hand in hand and linked with each other, whether they knew it or not, okay? So let me see, hold on one second. Okay. So now what's going on is that then the kingdom of Solomon starts to unravel, okay? So I'm not going to go into that story too much, but he did have he had some issues with some adversaries, okay? And then so what happened was, because David was blessed, okay? David was renowned among everyone, and Adonai, his blessing would follow David and protect the kingdom as long as David was there. But when David passed away, it's that all of a sudden people said, okay, the strength of the kingdom is gone. Let's go attack our enemies now, because the enemies of David's kingdom were afraid of him because the blessing was on him, okay? So this is how Solomon's kingdom started to unravel, because he turned his heart away and taught the people to do idol worship, okay? To worship other gods, and so it caused a problem. So let me see. So now I'm at verse 26 of 1 Kings 11, okay? Then Solomon's servant, hint, hint, because he said he was going to He was going to tear the kingdom away from Solomon and give it to his servant because of Solomon's disobedience. So that's what I'm saying again. Check the iniquities of your ancestors and try to apologize for it and try to bring your household, your kingdom, your tribe, whatever it is, back into right standing, okay? So anyway, so Solomon's servant, Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, an Ephraimite from Zerida, whose mother's name was Zeruiah, a widow, also rebelled against the king. So, okay. So let me read the story. And this is what caused him to rebel against the king. Solomon had built the Milo and repaired damages to the city of David his father. The man Jeroboam was a mighty man of valor, and Solomon, seeing that the young man was industrious, made him the officer over all the labor force of the house of Joseph. Now it happened at the time when Jeroboam went out of Jerusalem that the prophet Ahijah the Shilonite met him on the way, and he had clothed himself with a new garment, and the two were alone in the field. Then Ahijah took hold of the new garment that was on him and tore it into 12 pieces. And he said to Jeroboam, "Take for yourself 10 pieces, for thus says the Adonai, the Arevite of Israel, Behold, I will tear the kingdom out of the hand of Solomon and will give 10 tribes to you. But he shall have 1 tribe for the sake of my servant David, and for the sake of Jerusalem, the city which I have chosen out of all of the tribes of Israel. Because they have forsaken me and worshipped," so they worshipped 4 different idols, "and have not walked in my ways to do what is right in my eyes and keep my statutes and my judgments, as did his father David. However, I will not take the whole kingdom out of his hand, because I have made him ruler all the days of his life for the sake of my servant David, whom I chose because he kept my commandments and statutes. But I will take the kingdom out of his son's hand and give it to you, 10 tribes. And to his son I will give 1 tribe, that my servant David may always have a lamp before me in Jerusalem, the city which I have chosen for myself to put my name there." So that's why all the time it'll say in Jerusalem and in Zion, because Zion was Judah and they were still loyal to David, okay? So let me see. So in verse 38, "Then it shall be, if you heed all that I command you, walk in my ways and do what is right in my sight, to keep my statutes and my commandments, as my servant David did, then I will be with you and build for you an enduring house as I built for David, and will give Israel to you. And I will afflict the..." Okay, so he said it will afflict the descendants of David because of this, but not forever, okay? So now he just said that to Jeroboam, okay, the servant of Solomon. Now it was conditional. It says, "If you will heed all that I command you." So it said, if you will obey, then I will give you this kingdom, right? Let's see. So because Solomon heard what was going on, Solomon was going to deal with Jeroboam, but Jeroboam fled to Egypt so he would not be in danger, okay? So let me see. So now there's an issue, because when Solomon passed away, his son Rehoboam reigned in his place. So then there was the change of the kingdom hands. Now listen, Jeroboam's reign, the servant's reign, is only conditional. Everybody's reign is conditional on whether they want to obey the commandments or not, okay? So Jeroboam has to obey the Creator with his statutes, his commandments, as his servant David did, in order to keep the kingdom, okay? So now when you turn to 1 Kings 12, let's see. There's an issue with Rehoboam, Solomon's son. He did not listen to counsel, because the people of Israel, they were upset because they thought that King Solomon gave them a heavy yoke, a heavy burden. And it said, if you will release some of this heavy burden that your father Solomon put upon us, maybe it was to build different, because he built the Milo, and he built David's house. He restored the city of David. He restored the house. So I guess it was a heavy burden because they had to lift stones and do all kinds of heavy, hard work. So the children of Israel said to Rehoboam, Solomon's son, they said, if you will reduce this heavy yoke. So it says, your father made our yoke heavy, verse 4 of chapter 12. Now therefore lighten the burdensome service of your father and his heavy yoke which he put upon us, and we will serve you. So Rehoboam, his son, didn't answer them for 3 days, And then he took the advice of his friends that he was growing up with instead of the wise men around him who advised him. And so the young men who he grew up with told him to provoke the people, his people, okay? So he answered them back according to the young men he had grown up with. So he answered them back saying, let's see, he said, my little finger shall be thicker than my father's waist, is how he answered the people back. And so this is how the kingdom had an issue, because the people said, can you please lighten the load? And the king didn't really listen. I think he wasn't ready to be king yet, so he didn't understand what they meant, or he didn't understand if they were serious. I'm not really sure. Okay, so this is how we have Judah following David, but then the rest of the kingdom ended up following Jeroboam for a while. So King Rehoboam was still king, but okay, so Jeroboam would have had the kingdom, except for Jeroboam was not faithful either, okay? So if you look here in 1 Kings 12, from verse 25 to 33, it's describing what did Jeroboam do, okay? So Jeroboam did not want the children of Israel. So let's look at chapter 12, verse 27. If these people go up to offer sacrifices in the house of the Adonai at Jerusalem, then the heart of this people will turn back to their Adonai, Rehoboam king of Judah, and they will kill me, that's Jeroboam talking, and go back to Rehoboam king of Judah. Therefore the king took counsel and made 2 calves of gold. Okay? So this is actually Jeroboam here. Okay? Okay, because Jeroboam was the one that was talking here. So it's kind of an issue as who was king. Because Rehoboam was technically king, but I guess it depends on which tribe you're talking about or which area you're talking about, okay? So what happened was that Jeroboam set up 2 calves of gold. He put one in Bethel, the other one he put in Dan, okay? And then the people, these became high places in Israel, okay? And so he made shrines, verse 31, he made shrines on the high places and made priests from every class of people who are not of the sons of Levi. So Jeroboam would have kept the kingdom, but Jeroboam was sinning even more so. He had them worshiping idols. Solomon had the people worshiping pretty much idols too, but they were of other nations, okay? So in between Solomon's rule and Jeroboam's rule, Adonai would have been upset regardless, because he does not want us to worship other gods. He is only the one that we're supposed to worship, our one and only Eloah, okay? So I'm not sure how long the message is. Let me probably check the minutes for 1 second and see how many minutes I have to talk to you. Okay, wow, yeah, I'm glad I came to check because I only have like a minute left. So I'm going to maybe do a part 2 of this video. What I was trying to explain to you is what happens when we sin against our Creator. He asks us please to follow and obey His commandments, and when we don't do it, sometimes it's kind of like when He says don't eat from this tree in the Garden of Eden and you don't listen. Sometimes there's a delay on the curse that comes, but sometimes the curse that comes immediately. In this story, it didn't come immediately. The kingdom left David's family, but it didn't stay with Jeroboam because Jeroboam was not faithful either, okay? All Adonai wants us to do is to be faithful to His commandments, okay? Let's try to do that so we don't lose the